All right, thank you everyone for joining us today. My conversation today is with Dona Sarkar, who is leading dev advocacy at Microsoft for the Power Platform and Fusion Devs. She's also an international keynote speaker, or as she calls it, chaos causer, which I would tend to agree based on watching Twitter feeds and wanting people not to get in jail. She's a published author, with my personal favorite being the hashtag Do the Thing book, which is amazing. Is the owner and chief creative officer for her personal fashion brand, Prima Donna, and she's all that and more. And I just want to welcome you, Donna, to the podcast today.
Thank you so much, Jeremy, for having me on The Geek Within. This is such an honor because once Jeremy told me the vision of The Geek Within, which is talk about, sure, all of the things that you're known for in the world, but really talk about the why. Why do you do all these things? Why are you driven to do all these things? Why are you doing these things now, and what does the future look like? I think those are the things that people really don't dig into. So I'm so appreciative that you thought about it and said you really want to understand the key motivations of why people do the things that they do. So it's such a good idea.
Fantastic. Well, then, for those who don't know you personally, right, tell us where you're from, a bit about what, who you are, where you came from, and what you do.
Okay, so again, I'm Donna. I am originally from Detroit, Michigan, right there. And I grew up there. I went to college at University of Michigan, go Blue. I studied computer science. And after I studied computer science, graduated college, I moved out to the West Coast to work in tech. So what is fascinating about this story to me is that I really would never have been in technology if it wasn't for Larry Page. Okay. So, random sidebar. I was growing up in Detroit. And I have two amazing parents, a younger sister. We are what we call not wealthy people. My parents were students. They worked full time. We didn't have much, but we really had a strong sense of survival and that anything is possible for anyone. It's just something we as a family believe, that doesn't matter where you come from, you can achieve your wildest dreams. And don't let your wildest dreams only be what you look around you and see and assume that that's all that's available to you. So my dad is a voracious reader, and he likes to read. He liked to read the Wall Street Journal. So every evening he would read the Wall Street Journal, and we would actually get it at the library because we can't afford to buy the Wall Street Journal.
Right.
Get it at the library, read the Wall Street Journal. And then he's pointing out, he's like, University of Michigan, where you're going to go. I'd been accepted into college at this point, and I didn't know what I was going to study, only that it was going to be something practical, that I would graduate and get a great job and earn a good income. This I knew. What that practical degree was, we still pretty, fuzzy. At this point, I'd never taken computer science. We did not have a computer. I don't think I knew how to type. None of this was in plan. It's not like we had AP computer science in Detroit, Michigan. It was not. So my dad's reading a newspaper and he says, Larry Page, this guy, he went to University of Michigan and he's gone on to start this company. And I'm like, okay, Dad, that's nice. It's like, he started a company called Google. And I said, okay. And he said, it's some search company. When we're at the library, we should look up this company called Google on the library computer. I said, okay. So we go to library computer, search for google.com. We're like, okay, it's a search thing. We search, we find how to use it, fine. And he said, this guy, he's like the CEO of his own company with his friend. And he went to University of Michigan and now they're like extremely rich. And I said, yes. He said, everyone in the world knows this guy's name. Okay. My dad says, I don't care what you study. You should be more famous than Larry Page.
That's big. That's big.
Why do I need to be more famous than Larry Page? He said, why not? I'm like, okay. So since then, and I'm not kidding, it's always been this random devil angel situation in my head saying, what would Larry Page do? Never mind. It's not like we know the guy, right? My dad acts like he lives next door and we're like, we've never seen this guy in our lives. I could not identify Larry Page in the lineup, right? So I just thought, okay, heads up Google, he probably studied computer science. Let's go do that. So I waltzed into computer science class, which is the first one. It's called Ep10, Electrical Engineering Computer Science 100. There's 500 people in there. And it is extremely difficult. It is a very hard class. There's like bits, gates, binary programming, assembly programming, C++ in 6 months. And you learn binary programming first. Then you learn assembly. Then you learn C++. I realized this class is called a weeder, meaning it's supposed to weed people out.
Yeah.
By default, they expect maybe 10% of people to graduate this class. And I'm like, dear University of Michigan, why you do this? But they're known as a hardcore engineering school because they're a hardcore engineering school.
Right.
It's not known as that because it's easy. So of course I fail. There's some dudes in the front row though who are like, this is easy. I've been doing this since I was 13. Why do we have to learn this? And I'm like, you're not going to be Larry Page. I'm going to be Larry Page, not you. So I did what I usually do. I thought about quitting. I'm like, why am I getting into this industry because some random guy named Larry Page? I don't belong here. I didn't take computer science from when I was 13, like those guys in the front. And I realized, Jeremy, so fast that we are conditioned to believe that if we're not good at something, we don't belong there. It's just what school teaches you. Like, if you're not good at it, you don't belong in it. And it's so random because to get good at something, we just have to do it a lot. So how the heck am I, Donna, from Detroit, going to be good at computer science, who's never had a computer, who's never programmed in my life? It's not a magical skill you acquire. Like, if I'd never ridden a bicycle, I wouldn't be able to ride a bicycle either. So I said, okay, what would I do if it was any other situation? If I was learning to play the violin, right? I would probably go get a violin and practice a lot and not give up. Okay. Can't afford a computer still. So I decided to spend all my time at the computer lab and I'm going to do EECS 100 again. So I took it again following semester. My advisor is like, good, do it. Okay. Did it, took it again, got a B. I'm like, I am winning. I'm now a genius. On my way to being Larry Page. Cool. So my entire computer science degree went on like this. It was like, what is an operating system? Why do I need this? Never. Fail, take it again, pass. But I did it exactly how I do everything else, which is you do the thing again, right? That's why I'm such a believer in this mantra of do the thing. People are like, I'm scared. What do I do? You do the thing. I failed. What do I do? Do the thing again. But I failed again. What do I do? The thing again. Do the thing till you stop sucking at it. Really, right? It's at the beginning, you're going to be really bad. That's okay. Second time you do it, you're going to be less bad. You're not going to be good. It's not a movie. You're not going to magically be good the next day. You're going to be really bad. Next day, you're going to be a little less bad. Then you're going to be a little less bad. One day, you're not going to suck as bad as you used to. And one day, you'll be good.
Or you'll still suck, but you somehow manage to make it happen.
That's okay. Yeah. Right. You compared to when you started, you won't suck as bad.
That's right.
And that's how I did computer science. And I did fail operating systems. And I swore, I'm like, shakes fist and says, operating systems is stupid. I'm never going to work in operating systems. There's only 2 of them in the world, 3 of them. Why would anyone need to work on an operating system? You have to be dumb. Okay.
Yeah, we know.
I know. Larry Page did not work on an operating system. I do not need to work on an operating system. I'm going to work on websites. Fine. Of course, the job offer I get is for Microsoft to work on Windows.
which was amazing. You transformed that office, right? With the way they got to be known. It was pretty awesome.
It's wild because I was so fortunate. My first job out of college was at a company called Siebel Systems. They made CRM software. They got bought into Oracle. My second job, I was already in Seattle, had made friends with some people who worked at Microsoft, and they're like, hey, they're hiring lots of software engineers. You should go apply for this role. And honestly, I went through major imposter syndrome. Like, I failed operating systems. There's no way I can go apply for this job. They're going to call my college and know I failed. Just so you know, Microsoft has never called a university.
That's right. Nobody's ever checked the actual transcript.
Yeah, to see if you failed operating systems or not, because probably everyone would have failed operating systems. So I was convinced that I absolutely can't do it, do not belong. But I just like gritted my teeth and said, if I'm going to be famouser than Larry Page, this is a good start. And so I joined the Windows team 15 years ago. And I worked on an operating system for 14 of the last 15 years. And I worked on 5 versions of that operating system, including the holographic version. You wear it on your head. And what is wild is after about 4 years, college recruiting started asking me if I would go back to University of Michigan and hiring.
Hmm.
And I would always I used to be terrified of public speaking. Like if you asked me to do it, I would faint on the floor and die. But I had to get over the fear again by doing the thing again, just doing it. Then I used to give this meet the company talk where I'm like, I should not be here because I failed your operating systems class. That one you're failing, I failed it too. And students loved this talk for some reason. They loved it. They would always flock to see it. Finally, the professor showed up one night and said, you failed operating systems? I'm like, oh shit, this is where I'm going to be fired. And you're going to call like the CEO and tell him, right? And he's like, will you lecture in our operating systems class? And I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, because we would love to hear a real life case of you're the only person who's come back here who works on an operating system. So, and I said, yeah, because there's only 3 of them in the world.
Right.
That many operating systems. And he said, I would love for you to come back and tell us what it's really like to work on an OS, some key challenges. What are the things you absolutely need to know? What are the things it's okay to fail and learn on the job? And I said, yeah, I'd love to do that. So I became a standing lecturer for my operating systems class that I failed for years, for like a decade. I lectured in operating systems class.
That's amazing.
So anything is possible, seriously.
So that's it. Yeah, that's interesting. So in there, you kind of answered my, my typical second question around how you got into IT. It sounds like, your dad, number one, your dad was, which, I think is amazing, right? Our parents can, be amazing impacts on us in pushing us either through their own example of how they've strived to do things. I too came from a family who was enlisted military, very, very
That's
poor.
Right. Yeah.
And through just watching them do it anyway, do what they needed to do, you get that kind of go-to-itness, right? And do it for yourself. So, but why computer science? I mean, is it because of Larry Page? Is computer, that's it?
Pretty much, yeah. It was that. Also, you know what? I kind of fell in love with it though, because after I stopped failing everything the first year, I realized there's so much to be done here. So second year, it was learn all these data structures and all of these objects and build something. I'm like, build something. So we all built a video game. And it was just fascinating to be able to build, have nothing, blank console, that suddenly I built a video game and I built a character and you direct it, turn left, turn right, wield sword, all of this. And like, I realized I've invented a world and then invented a character who travels through this world. And I am God. I am a genius. The first time, of course, it's like, I am a moron. I am dumb.
Right.
It doesn't work. Then 5 minutes later, I am a genius. I'm this person who never lived. Larry Page is going to be like, damn, I wish I could be like Donna. Next minute, it's like, I am so dumb. I should get thrown out of this college. The virtuous cycle of software.
It is very much, yes.
So it was amazing just to realize like, it's art, right? And people forget that. They think, oh, computer science, you have to be good at math. I am very bad at math. Just so you know, as a dyslexic person, let me explain to you how bad I am at math. Really bad. Did not ever think about taking more than like calculus 1. Like, no. You do not need to be good at math to be good at computer science. Maybe if you're doing like intense graphic stuff, you have to be good at math. I don't know. But in general, it's logic. If you're good at puzzles, even if you're not good at puzzles, if you're good at just thinking about instructions, breaking things down, you're going to be good at computer science. But really, if you're good at art, and no one tells you this, that if your artists are people who are not afraid of a blank page. They see a blank page, a blank canvas, and they're excited. They're not scared. They're not like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I'm so scared. They're excited by all the potential. And they don't mind that the first stroke may not be there once they finish because they would have painted over it. So artists aren't afraid of a blank page, and real computer scientists who really embrace the industry, they aren't either. Right. And it's like blank console and you have a vision. Same as being an artist, blank page and you have a vision. And you translate the vision in your head into something here that makes you feel like, yeah, I've done the thing. And with computer science, I feel it's even easier because it's pretty binary. It's like, did it work or not? Right?
Right. That's true. It's unlike art where there's a lot of subjectiveness.
There's a lot of subjective. You're like, oh, I love it. It's great. Show someone. They're like, that's the worst thing I've ever seen. Then your heart. Versus computer science, You're like, I'm going to build a game where this character goes through this puzzle and wins or doesn't win at the end. Did you do that? Yes or no? It's binary, right?
Right.
Computer does not care about your, artistic ability. It's did it work or not. So I feel like it's almost an easier version of art. It's for artists who don't have as thick skin. That's kind of how I've described it. I'm like, I'm very much an artist. I happen to have thick skin now, but I didn't used to. So it's ideal for that kind of artist. You get validation pretty quickly, create something from nothing. You make a lot of money doing it. It's like the best starving artist gig in the world. I haven't told anyone. Yeah.
And that's interesting because I have met a lot of people who come from artistic backgrounds, right? They were in IT. I've met people who are ballerinas and opera singers and, painters, and they're also in IT, either as now their full-time gig or they're just dipping the toe in because they thought they wanted to try something different. So I totally get that. That's very interesting. I am not as much creative. I'm more creative now than I used to be. I used to be afraid of that blank page when I had to build a web page. I'd be like, oh my gosh, there's too many options. I would get overwhelmed by options.
That's
but then
right.
if you break it down, like you said, if you break it down into small pieces, then it becomes more manageable. And then all of a sudden you produce something and it works. Well, hopefully it works. Or you Google it or Bing, sorry.
Exactly.
You Bing it.
I think you just go research and solve the problem, however, the best way to solve the problem, right? So I really want people to understand that IT and technology, it's not something for super science nerds. If you were shitty at science and shitty at math, there is an entire industry that is just waiting for you. Right. And we need so many people. We need the science nerds. We need the art nerds. We need the band nerds. We need all the nerds. Show up, do the thing, because there's not like a kind of software engineer or a kind of IT person. There's probably like maybe 200 that I can name right now. That means there's probably 400 that exist. That means by the time we're done recording this podcast and it airs, there's going to be 700. 800.
Right.
Right.
So thinking back then through your experience and the various jobs you've had in IT and in the education you've had in IT, what would you change about the way, what's one thing you would change about the way we do something in IT today?
I would change the way we talk about it. We have such a weird proprietary way about talking about our industry, and it is random. So here's an example. Often in interviews that I've been in myself, where me and colleagues are interviewing, they'll say, well, I want to see their passion for technology. I'm like, okay, cool. They're like, so focus on side projects they do. Sure, they have a full-time job. Focus on their side projects. What apps have they built? What websites have they built? How many startups have they done? And I'm like, hold the phone. Why is it this person who has a full-time job in tech needs to build up an extra resume of side projects when they're busy doing their job? They're like, oh no, it really shows that people have a passion for technology. I'm like, okay, so let's do this. I am a nurse at a hospital. On the side though, I do drive-by surgeries on the side of the road. I like work at an animal clinic where I repair feet. I also do like emergency brain surgeries at the grocery store. What the hell? You would think that person is crazy. You're like, that's random. Don't do that, right? For some reason in our industry, we've gotten into our head that you need to be a certain kind of geek to fit in. And that's just not true. And it might be why I'm like so vocal about my extracurriculars. And a lot of people have said that. They're like, you don't hide your side things at all. I'm like, oh no, it is in your face, because I'm proving a point, which is being in IT is not an identity. It is a job. You're a software engineer. You use software engineering skills or IT skills to solve business problems, whether it's for you or your company or whatever. I also use those skills to solve lots of other problems. But being an author, being a public speaker, being a fashion business owner are not IT jobs. Sometimes they are. Like if I have to learn to publish a thing on Amazon, sure. But it's so important for people to realize that you don't actually need to code on weekends, contribute to open source projects, go join like coding conventions or whatever the heck, coding contests, nor do you need like typical geek interests. Like you are a gamer. I am not a gamer. We're both in this industry. I've never gamed in my life, other than the game I made in 1999. I've never gamed in my life. I don't know what's the difference between Star Trek, Wars, all of. I do not know. I don't know. I don't care. And many people at Donna turning your geek card. I'm like, no.
No,
So
yeah.
yeah, no, I won't. I'm like, oh, sorry, I'm busy making the operating system that you're using right now. So it's we put up these weird gatekeeping things to kind of try to keep this industry as small as possible. And I think it's because many people in the industry are like, we're the outsiders, so we need to keep everyone out. And I'm like, do you not understand? If you're an outsider, you're keeping everyone out. Now you're creating outsiders. So it's this weird thing, and it's still here, and it's still around in 2020, which I find to be very odd, because it was there in 98 and it's still here in 2020.
It was there in 90. It was there in 93 when I started in IT.
The fact that it was there in 93 when you started, right? And we have this notion of what someone in IT looks like, what they behave like, and do they have a certain amount of geek cred? What's their score in X video game or Dungeons and Dragons, or like this kind of thing. And I'm not saying that people shouldn't do these things. I'm saying people should do them. But if you don't, you also belong in this industry.
Right.
So that's the one thing I wish.
That's interesting. I mean, I would say I agree with you. That has been some of the most frustrating things I run into in IT. And I think I'm going to guess. I'm going to totally guess, but I think some of it is their own insecurity over their role, right? The one challenge in IT is the technology changes very fast.
Yes.
But we don't replace it that fast.
Yeah.
And so there are people who have insecurities who want to continue to hold on to what it is they know. And they know it well. Many of them do know it well. And that's why they're keeping you out of their box, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it does stifle innovation. It stifles bringing people in and making them included in the process. I'm not a big believer of that. I agree with you. And I'm not a side code person. I've maybe coded 3 projects on the side in my entire life, and they were all because my grandmother needed something, and I was like, I can write code to do that. It's because I knew somebody who wanted something,
right?
Not because I felt like I had to spend my day coding. I spend the rest of my day doing something else. I code for a living.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's why you're able to have this like much more broad view of the world and the kinds of problems that tech can solve. Because you're not just embedded in one area. And I really encourage people to go and talk to others who might be interested in technology and drag them into this industry and show them that there's a place for them. Because as you and I both know, we have probably the biggest talent shortage in the history of the world right now.
We do.
If we grow the number of people working in tech by 10x in the next 10 years, we still have like 100x talent shortage.
Right. And I would say it's even worse. I mean, I work in government, and it's so hard to recruit in government because we don't pay well.
No, that's right.
We just don't. We need you to want to come with a purpose of changing government for better.
Exactly.
And we'll pay you, certainly, and we do our best to try to make the pay scale to the best we can. But it's certainly not going to compare to some startup or some other place.
Yeah, definitely not. Just because government doesn't make that kind of money. Right. It just happens. The 10 most wealthy companies on the planet are like big tech software companies. Like, let's be clear, software companies, because the margins of software are like enormously high. Right. I run a fashion business. The margins are extremely low. Margins, software company, like
right. They don't have that when they produce code and they compile it, and then they can ship that all over the place, right? They don't have to worry about supply chain. They don't have to worry about
supply chain. Your supply chain is like publishing on a website somewhere, right? Publishing an update, not like, oh, you got to ship it to a factory somewhere and have that factory shipped to somewhere and returns and weather. Like, we're not affected by weather. We're not affected by COVID. The fact that software industry was affected 0 by COVID is a sign that, here's an industry that's not going anywhere, and we just need more people. We need more people.
So looking back, you've had an interesting career, and and it's going to continue, right? There's a big future for you. You're young, and you got lots going for you, and you're doing a ton of stuff. So where do you see yourself maybe in the next 5 or 10 years? What kind of areas or what technologies or what's your interest area?
So right now I work in Power Platform, which you and I both are huge fans of. And I like Power Platform because after working as a C++ dev for all these years, I'm working on something that is highly relatable to the normal person, where finally I can sit down with my dad. And I'm like, both of us can build this thing. And he's like, no, I'm not a technical person. I'm like, you got me in this industry. So I can sit him down, who's, he's worked his 30-year career at Ford, like plant worker. He has no idea what I'm talking about. Where we can sit down and build an app in half an hour. And it's such a powerful thing for someone to be able to build their own app. And they feel like, I am God, I am a genius, I'm a dumbass, I'm a genius. They get
right.
virtuous.
They get to experience that, that nice
and
peaks
it's so
valleys.
Cool. It might be the first time in people's life they're building a thing from scratch themselves, and something that they can see themselves using for a purpose throughout their work or job or whatever. So I've fallen in love with this concept of tech being truly democratic to people. And right now I work on tech skilling, where I'm so focused on how can we use Power Platform to skill various groups. And the 3 groups that I'm really focused on very deeply are people who work in a company in some department that's not IT. So it could be finance, legal, operations, etc. They're like, I wish we had a website or an app that could track the incoming interns and where we allocate them. I'm like, you can build that. They're like, no, we need a dev. I'm like, no, don't call it dev. They're going to build something you don't need. Just do it. And here's how you do it. So that's one group of people outside IT in companies. Second group are students, non-computer science students all over the world. We have students, every country I've been to, there's universities, and every university has students who are like, how can I make sure, it's the number one fear. How do I get a job? Doesn't matter what country you're in. How do I get a job? They're not going to university for no reason. They're like, how do I get a job?
And they got to pay their student debt.
Exactly. They have to pay their student debt. Many have to take care of their family. Many have to think about their future. So this is like, getting skilled in technology is such a superpower on their resume. It does not even matter what industry they're going into. I'm not saying come join tech. I'm saying learn this tech, because it doesn't matter if you're going to go work on an oil rig, or if you're going to like work in public sector, you're going to be a lawyer. It will help you. It will just help you. It'll set you apart. It'll give you this weird superpower that you're going to now wish that you'd had earlier. So second group of students. And the third are the career switchers. So all of our friends who've had to risk their lives during this COVID period, all our friends who've gotten furloughed, who've gotten laid off, I'm like, we have the biggest unemployed, 20 million people are unemployed, right, in the US.
Wow.
There's 150 million talent shortage though. So I'm like, unemployed people, jobs to be done. We need to skill unemployed people to have jobs to be done. And I know it's not so simplistic, but I feel like there's something there. So I'm really looking at these 3 audiences. And of course it breaks down into lots of categories, like military veterans. So smart, so focused, so dynamic. Yet we have no plan for them. We're like, so smart. How do we not have a good plan for what you're going to do once you return from service? Like a real legit plan that helps you work at home. You don't have to go somewhere. Work at home, solve these business problems, earn a good living. It would really, really help, right?
Yeah.
So that people all over the world, I have a huge passion for international, as do you. In the poorest of the poor countries, why shouldn't they make a good income working remotely for all these companies that honestly could use the help? We can't hire the talent fast enough. So that's what I'm looking at. I don't know what that looks like in terms of job, but I can never predict my future job, because it usually finds me. Usually someone will say, hey, we're starting a bet X thing. We want you to go do Y for it. And I'm like, I'm here for it. Like, dear universe, tech skilling is a thing. I believe in it. I want to work in this probably for the rest of my tech career. So how can I do that in a way that's useful, practical, and actually like puts people to work?
Wow. And that's amazing. And that's a good note to leave off on today. So thank you so much, Donna. I really appreciate you coming and talking with me today and telling everyone a bit more about you personally. And
thank you.
Anytime. Take care.
Bye.